Hello there, everyone. Welcome to this month's Matcha Tea Time. I'm here sipping my tea, and I have the lovely Summer Sides from GxUnited. She's got her tea. So, hi, everyone. I'm Denise Imbesi, CEO and founder of Muscle Mix Music. And every month, I come out here and I interview subject matter experts, thought leaders from the industry to help fit pros with better resources and information to do your job better. And we started this during the pandemic because it was critical at that time. And we've continued it on because we found a lot of great feedback. It's given me the chance to meet some amazing people in the industry. And it's been really great, been a lot of fun as well. Nothing wrong with that, right? So today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Summer Sides. And I am going to read her bio as best as I can. She's pretty amazing. She's one of those people that wears a lot of hats, right, Summer? I mean, you're just too talented.
That is true.
Yeah. We are going to talk about, by the way, a Fit Pro's guide to reducing burnout. But I am going to tell you about who she is first, and then we'll jump right in. So Summer has spent 20 years geeking out in all things fitness. She is the founder of GxUnited, that's her shirt. It's a really wonderful educational resource hub dedicated to group fitness professionals. I feel like it took the place of that one company called
Turnstep.
Turnstep.
Turnstep was actually one of my original influences and inspirations for developing the platform back in 2015 when I first developed it. I remembered back to going on to Turnstep at the beginning of my career. I actually tried to buy turnstep.com.
Who are they? Do we know who they are?
No, they never returned any of my contacts or anything. They are a no-named, faceless people.
Somebody. Isn't that interesting? And that just occurred to me right now as I read this. You and I didn't even talk about this before, but
yeah,
that's so interesting. Somebody needed to fill that void because they were doing such an amazing job, of course, with what they had at the time, which was like words and links. We didn't have video, we didn't have anything really.
I actually, crazy enough, found a binder a couple years ago when I was moving of file folders of things that I had printed off of Turnstep to just put together my class plans, because that's back in the step kickboxing days. That was how we figured things out. So yeah,
it was great. Yeah, if anybody know who was the creator of Turnstep, please reach out, because I'm dying to know what that was. Anyway, so GxUnited is an educational resource hub dedicated to group fitness professionals. She holds a special place in her heart for empowering group fit pros to teach inspiring movement experiences while protecting your own physical and mental health. I love that. She has a master's in sports psychology, and she loves to dive into the why behind movement and look deeper into than just the physical act of exercise. And you have quite a few. You have a big number of traffic that goes to your website. I know that because we get a lot of people come over from your website. And we thank you for that. Yeah, I'm sure you have
I'm really fortunate that in the 7 years now that we've been alive and up on the world, we've gotten and gained traction from all over the world. I look at our analytics and I'm always surprised when I see people in Europe and the UK on our sites. But I think it's just because of the very specific hold we have for group fitness and the different look that we take with group fitness as well, because it's not just the standard traditional that you're seeing on a lot of sites. We kind of go in and tell you the why behind things. You've got a lot of music resources, which is how they direct to you guys as well. So
that's so great. Yeah, no, it's great. I am going to say a couple more things about how great you are. She's had the honor of working as a professor of exercise science, owning a boutique yoga studio. I think I knew that. Working with companies such as Les Mills, NETA, IMG Academy, and coaching thousands of people to stand taller. See, now you're making me do that. Move easier and perform at their best. Her lifelong love for learning includes an MS and a BS in exercise science. Wow, you're a smarty. And many industry certs, including CSCS, RTY 2000, that's yoga, ACSM, ACE, and many other special trainings. So she hopes to inspire people to think bigger, do better, and achieve more. I love that. I love reading that because I learned a little bit about you just now. You are, yeah, definitely an educational geek, which is great because you have the science knowledge behind a lot of the things. And, you know, talking about this burnout subject, let's talk about, first of all, let's back up and define burnout in the way that we're talking about it today. What does it mean to you, the word burnout, in that respect of what we're discussing today?
Yeah, you know, burnout is one of those words that I think right now, especially, is getting thrown out a lot, of just meaning exhausted, tired, mental fatigue, physical fatigue. And it's often really wrapped up around your career. And they talk a lot about burnout fatigue. I mean, but if you think about the pandemic has led to a lot of this. I actually started getting into burnout research from a very different perspective when I was in grad school, and the physical burnout. And
so meaning what? Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, with like endurance athletes and athletes where you're doing so much activity and exercise that your body just starts to break down, and you start to see lots of other sicknesses and injuries start to occur because of the high amount of activity that you're doing on a regular.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. So there's the physical burnout, which is something you can tangibly, you know, see, visualize, because, like you said, overactivity of athletes or fitness professionals who hurt and injure themselves. And then there's the mental burnout, which is a little harder. Am I right in putting your finger on it?
Yeah. And
is it just a feeling, or does it cause physical symptoms, or what do you know about it?
Yeah, with kind of the mental side of it, one of the things, like if you are, a lot of times it's stress and the responses that people have to stress, of what, like brain fog, and your brain just kind of feeling like a jumbled mess. Like you can't get sentences out. You're just kind of walking around in a dazed, glazed world, or you're just exhausted all the time. Yeah. And you know, the kind of crazy thing with burnout, and my own personal experiences, but also just other people's, is that it can lead down that path from the mental side to things like anxieties and depressions and more clinical mental health conditions if it doesn't get kind of under control at an early part of
taken care of.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. And, you know, I think we've all been burnt out at some point in our lives in whatever way, right? I know the things that affect me when burnout occurs, but the fitness industry is obviously not immune to burnout, and the burnout rate, I've been told, is at an all-time high in fitness industry for burnout, or just burnout in general is at an all-time high, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, all the research right now is just everything is out there with such high rates. The pandemic, the nature of just how we shifted so fast. And if we think about the fitness industry, especially, we had to pivot overnight. So you mentioned I owned a yoga studio, and owning a yoga studio, I had been the really fortunate owner. I took over ownership of a local yoga studio on March 1st, 2020. And 18 days later shut down. And
know that.
And then for 18 months, I tried to navigate this and did everything in my power to keep us open. And I think that when we think about fitness professionals right now, we have become entrepreneurs overnight, whether you wanted to or not. Video technicians, audio, sound mixers, you have learned technology, all this really quickly overnight. Plus, you are also doing the physical demands on your body that were already part of our career and part of our industry, that especially for group fitness professionals make it so tough. So yeah, when they look at burnout as a worldwide, we are all burnout, and then when you narrow it down into fitness, you look at it, we just have had so many things on our plate.
No, that's really true. And one of the things that I take for granted, I guess, is because I do sit at my desk every day, I check emails all day long, and I'm always sort of in touch with what's happening. But people like Fit Pros who have those kinds of careers that they're on the go and they're teaching class, they don't do things like check emails. But when they have to start sitting down at a computer, they're not used to it. They're like, oh, my back hurts, or, oh, I have to sit and do this. Mentally, they can't do it, or physically, they can't do it. So it's definitely a shift in you're right. That's a really great observation.
Mm-hmm.
So what got you interested in this topic? Like, what made you decide to become interested in analyzing or researching burnout?
Make my brain. So it actually started in undergrad, and I remember taking a class. So I was an undergrad exercise science and dance student, and I started teaching group fitness my sophomore year of college. So in addition to my job that was teaching group fitness and my academics, which had me dancing and taking activity classes 15, 20 hours a week, I was doing a lot of activity. And I can remember being in a class and we started learning about this thing called overtraining. And I started to read some of the signs and symptoms. And I'm like, I get sick all the time. I don't recover easily. I feel like I've hit a bit of a plateau. And some of these things started to click with me. And so that word overtraining and burnout kind of stuck with me. And like so many fitness professionals, when we start feeling that way, you're like, okay, let me take a day off. Let me take a couple days to rest. Let me sleep for the next 32 hours straight, right? And I would do that and I would feel fine. So then when I went out, I graduated, I worked in the field, and then I decided to go back to grad school. And I sat at this really weird intersection of sports psychology and exercise phys. I had this really deep interest in both of them. And when I was like, what do I want to really study? I, at that point, was a massive endurance athlete. So I was a full-time fitness professional and I was training for marathons, long endurance.
Wow. Okay.
And so I started to just naturally gravitate towards this research during my grad school work on the high incidences of burnout, overtraining, and overuse injuries in endurance athletes. And it just became this really fascinating thing to me of looking at it from a mental side point of like, what is it about these endurance people? Like, why do they push when you're hurt? You're like, oh, I'm fine. That stress fracture, whatever. I'm still going to go run on it.
Yeah, it's true. Wow.
With this like weird, like, what's the physiology going on? So that was kind of what got me into like really going into the research. And then, unfortunately, in 2014, I got diagnosed by a doctor with what he said was a very severe case of overtraining syndrome.
Overtraining syndrome.
Overtraining
wow.
Syndrome.
And this was a physical thing or mental or both? Or what was he saying?
Yeah. For me, I had been in and out of the doctors for about a year. Just constantly feeling I just didn't feel right. And at this point in my career, I was a full-time group fitness professional, personal trainer, and I was traveling the country nationally as a master trainer.
Oh boy.
So
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And
I was still running a marathons. Events.
Wow.
So I just didn't feel good a lot. And I found that I was getting sick all the time. And, I was starting to have migraines, and I had never been a person to even have a headache.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
And so I went in, and my blood levels were like, he took major blood panels, and nothing was normal.
Interesting. I never heard of this before.
Yeah.
So overtraining syndrome. So when they say syndrome, does that mean it becomes chronic? Is that what that means? Like, this is an ongoing thing that you better stop and change things, or it's going to be chronic forever. Is that
great question? With overtraining, it's a really interesting thing, because there's kind of this progression into it. So it starts with what they call is like progressive overload, which is what we all do, right? Like when we're in the gym, we want to push a little bit harder, we want to go a little bit more. So that's good.
Yeah.
But then we do a lot of that. And we forget that we need to take days off. We forget that food is really important. And I will say that's probably always been my detriment, is that especially when I get busy, I would forget to eat. And so I would teach multiple classes back to back and then go train clients. And I'm like, oh crap, I haven't eaten anything all day.
Right.
And so
I understand.
That was one of those things that he started to really notice with me. So then it goes into that burnout, where kind of the things that we talked about earlier with the physical and the mental, the kind of sick. And then it gets to overtraining. So it's like this progression, and there's actually multiple levels within overtraining. That what you asked of, is it something that you have to kind of chronically monitor? And if you get to what they say is like stage 3 overtraining, which is where I was, which is the worst, it is something that now for the rest of my life, I have to pay attention to.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. This is what I'm sitting here thinking as you're saying this. There are two things you mentioned, and I know this interview is not about me, but, of course, I'm going to put myself in it because I want to understand it better and help everybody else understand it. There are two things that you said that I can't relate to. One is pushing more than you feel, because I'm the opposite. I don't want to have to do an extra mile run or whatever. And I will never say the words, I forgot to eat. So I can't relate. But I think maybe it has something to do with when you're in your 20s, maybe in my 20s, maybe I could relate, 30s, when you're young and you think you can conquer the world, right?
Yeah.
Maybe youth has something to do with it, but also different personality types, probably you were the kind of person or are the kind of person that's maybe type A or wants to go all the way, high standards.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but,
And that is part of it. And that's why it's fortunately unfortunate that the research in overtraining is difficult to find. So like when I got diagnosed, again, being a research science person, I dived into like what is out there, and I continue to. And because we can't put someone into a overtraining syndrome state to study it. The only things that are really out there are looking at professional athletes, and especially endurance athletes. And like I mentioned, one of the things where I sit in that weird intersection of sports psych and ex-phys is that they really looked at what is the mindsets of these endurance athletes who are pushing, and type A personalities tend to be, because it's I want to go harder, I want to go further, I want to go more. And one of the things that I said about being part of both the endurance running community and the fitness professional community, I think very similar things. Is that when you run, you're like, oh, you've done a 5K, awesome. When are you doing your 10K? Cool, you qualified.
Exactly.
When are you doing a half marathon? You've run a half marathon. Why not do a marathon? Oh, now you know. And it's always like what is more? What is more?
Yep.
And the same thing with fitness professionals. There's a post that I have that it still like sticks out and it pops up in my memories every now and then, back when all this was going on, that we kind of wear it as a badge of honor, group fitness professionals, of how many classes did we teach this week? Or how many classes did I teach today? And there was a post that literally, and I can't remember all of it, but it equated to I had done a body pump class, a bar class, a cycle class, a high intensity something else, and I had gone for a 10-mile run in one day.
No way.
Plus, I had trained multiple clients.
Oh, and we all
And it was
know
like,
when you
look
teach.
how awesome I am.
Oh, and we all know when you teach. I know when I used to teach, you put more in than the participant, because first of all, you're talking, and you have to be on. You have to go all out. You know, there's no cutting corners.
And
so wow.
And that's the hard part is, you know, I always said, like, as a group fit pro, when I started in the early 2000s, it was very much about you are doing and you are doing it all. And I taught lots of Les Mills formats, and I was an assessor for Les Mills, and they were like, you have to be role model technique, doing the exact heavy weight every single time, which just makes it to the point where if you're doing that 5 hours a day plus something else. I did the math on it once, and I was training more when I got diagnosed than most professional athletes. Like, I was doing more activity, and that's the thing that we as fit pros don't even think about.
Well, let me ask you this though, because whenever I've in the past had some kind of trainings, like I did 5Ks for a little, I ran 5Ks at one point in life. I remember there was always a day to break. You know, you have to have a day of rest. Don't fit pros, personal trainers, coaches, don't they build that into their training? Is it just that the people like you just didn't listen and just said, I can do it. I'm good. I can't stop for a day. Oh my God, I got to keep going. Is that what it is?
I think there's a couple different factors with that. You know, one of the things is, like, for me as a professional fitness professional, like, that was how I paid my bills.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I just took classes and clients when they came. So I can remember points when I trained 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, because when you're paid nothing an hour and you need to pay your bills, and that's how you're using to make a living. That's
true.
Or I did the math on it once. So $20 an hour is what an average group fitness instructor is paid for a class. Right?
Still? Okay.
Still, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then we look at that, say I taught 20 to 30 classes a week, which is insane.
Insane, yep.
It equates to something like $20,000 a year I'm making.
Yep.
Work my body more than a professional athlete who's getting paid millions, who has recovery built in, who has people who are there behind them, supporting them. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge for fitness professionals, is that we're not thinking about it as training. We're thinking about it as our job. And
that's true.
Whatever you can to survive. Sure, that more personality plays into it, but sometimes it's like, I just need to put food on the table.
I need the money. Well, the same thing happened. Yeah, I mean, I guess the same thing occurs with just regular work. You know, I went out with a friend of mine last night, and by the way, I'm just going to say that it was drag bingo. And I'm only saying that because I'm noticing I have some glitter still left over from last night. So excuse me for that. They threw glitter all over.
Binge watching RuPaul's Drag Race for the last like 2 months. I totally appreciate that. Even more.
But I was with a friend of mine I hadn't seen in a while. And during the bingo game, I realized I looked over and she's on her phone. Now, you know, people are on their phone from time to time, but it looked like she was doing work. And I looked at her and I said, can't you shut down? I mean, we're talking 9 o'clock at night, you know? And look, I work hard and I understand that sometimes you have to respond to those kinds of things. But the same thing happens sometimes with workaholics, non-fitness related, because you can't shut down, or you choose not to, or you don't know how to, or you don't take care of yourself enough to allow those breaks in between, you know? So this, and that's where the burnout comes in, right?
Exactly. And that's when we're looking at like burnout as a culture right now. Why we're all so burnt out is because we don't disconnect. And so that lack of ability, like when I told someone that I don't this time at this point in my life, because I've had to find ways to disconnect, that I don't put my work email onto my phone. So I only check it when I'm on the computer.
That's great.
And that is the only time I will do it. People are like
that.
What are you doing?
Oh my God.
You can't respond immediately. And I'm like, I'm not in a career where anyone is going to die if I don't.
Going to die. Yeah.
And that kind of became my mentality of like, I had to find some separation. And it's hard when we are connected to a little device that puts it all into us, and that's where I think for fitness professionals, it becomes even more challenging now, because you're like, I need to respond to social media. I need to become an influencer. I need to do all this other stuff.
True.
In addition to just teaching the classes and training.
That is so true. So well said. So how can we take care of ourselves as a fitness professional while still serving others? Because I mean, that's what you're doing at the end of the day. Do you have some tips or any ideas on that?
I do. I think that it's a tricky thing, right? Because as we said, there is that element of this is my career. Yeah. But what we can do now, as we have all started to realize that we don't have to be the cheerleader, we still want to be the cheerleader, but we don't have to be the dancer. We don't have to be the backup dancer at every moment. We can still motivate and inspire people without doing it in our own body.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a big thing in group fitness, especially of like, realize that if you need to teach the class, fine, but how do you learn to be a good coach? And
sorry about that.
Went away. How do you really improve your skills as a coach?
I love that.
And that I think is a huge one. Another really, really big thing, and this is something that we hear it in regular burnout, but also really applies in fitness professionals, is work with the people and the formats and the stuff that you really enjoy. One of the things that really hit me was I can teach step. I know how to put together choreography. I can do it, but I hate it. And so every single time I'd be like, sure, I can sub that step class. And I would dread it. I would dread putting the choreography together. I would dread it during the class. And so that all adds to that mental fatigue and the burnout, because you're doing what you don't want. So I think that that's another really, really big one.
I love that. Well, I want to go back to what you said about coaching though, because back in the 80s, 90s, when it was the only choice was high impact, low impact, and step. There wasn't that knowledge about you don't have to go full out, because you had to, in your mind or in our mind when we used to teach, we had to do the choreography because otherwise they wouldn't know it, right? But then somewhere along the line, and I don't know, I feel like it started with indoor cycling and then maybe with yoga and Pilates, the newer generation of instructors are off the bike or off the mat and are walking around adjusting or pointing or talking and coaching more. And that's given them the opportunity to teach, 3 classes in a day without killing themselves. Because how could you do high impact classes 5 a day, without burning out? Yeah.
You end up where I ended up.
You end up where you ended up, exactly.
with broken joints.
But I love that. You're absolutely right, because you don't want your instructor always, especially if they have their back to you in an in-person class. That's the worst. I hate classes like that. Yeah. I mean, I want them to say things that are motivating. And, I would think everybody else does too. But I love what you're saying about learn to really be a better instructor, the instructing part, the coaching part, as opposed to just, I'm doing the workout, you're doing it with me.
And I think that a lot of it, if anyone watched Physical, like we're watching the ABC making fun of the 80s fitness aerobics instructor, but it's so true. And I think the interesting thing is if we think about the language, and you even said it, back then it was an instructor. It was a person standing at the front of the room telling people what to do. And that was it, because it was, I need them to get the choreography. They're going to follow me, and that's just what we're doing. And I say all the time, anyone can tell someone what to do. My husband right now, who is not a fitness person, he's a law person, could get a piece of paper and walk people through a workout, squat, lunge, push up, right? Like that's not hard. It's not hard to do that. That's instructing.
That's a good point.
When we think about being a coach, and you look at what does it mean to be a coach? Well, you're great. I mean, I'm in North Carolina, so Dean Smith and UNC and Coach K, right? They're not playing basketball on the courts.
That's right. Good point.
They're not running up and down it, but they know how to motivate and inspire people to do it better. And that's where I think that we as fitness professionals, we are still trying to be the performer and the instructor, and we haven't learned always. And not to say, I mean, there's some amazing coaches out there. There are people who do it so great in the fitness industry. But when we're really talking about like myself as that example of like, I was doing it all. Well, at what point could have I just been like, I have to teach cycle today, but I'm not going to actually do it.
Right? Very easily, because there's no steps in the cycle.
All you're literally
just
doing is pushing a knob and spinning wheels. Goes nowhere, right?
So what can that be, right? You don't have to do it, right? That's so, I love that. And you know, my mind is going, I'm thinking about metaphorically, like how that also applies to other parts of life as a parent. You know, as a parent, I've learned, and believe me, I got a long way to go. But if I'm sitting there saying, wash the dishes, but then I'm washing them, then she's not going to learn. But if I teach her how to wash the dishes, you know, it's that, I mean, there's so many ways that can apply if you're really coaching. And so let me ask you this, where can you, is this information on your GxUnited website? Ways to become a better coach?
Yeah, this is a big part of what I do, and what I strongly believe in is helping people become a better coach. And whether that's giving you the tools to create workouts easier, helping you understand the different types of learners who are out there, helping you really understand different ways that you can coach people. Because if we think about people learn visually, auditory, and through their body, we need to understand how to coach things. And that is what a large portion of GxUnited is designed, and a lot of our content is all about, is kind of those little inside tips and tricks of how to do that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's really good. Now, you have something that you're going to give away. Is that right? Why don't you tell us about that?
So I have a download available on, if you go to gxunited.com/GXU remix, and we'll make sure that you get that. It is a workbook that you can download that is all about, it gives you ways to develop one workout and then do what I call remixes. So you don't have to spend hours creating new workouts every single time. You make one small tweak and have a new library of workouts. So one of the things is to save time for fitness professionals. So that is, it's a free download. If they go to that, there will be a sign, or there's a pop-up on the website. They can get it as well.
Oh, that's great. Oh, how nice. That's so nice of you. Okay. Anything else that you want? Like, how can people get a hold of you? Where can people find you? Do you have an email? Should they just go to the website? What should we do?
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing, guys, if you are interested, I actually back in 2014, shortly after I had been diagnosed with overtraining syndrome, I wrote a 4-part series on my experience. And it's real, it's raw. Like when I go back and read it, I can feel the pain that I was going through. And I regularly get emails and DMs from people who found that article and found that series. So if you go to gxunited.com/overtraining syndrome, you can read that. I then talk a little bit more about the science, and you can get the wrap up of where it all led with a fungal infection that set against my head, pushing against my brain, landing me in the emergency room. With
Summer, wow, I had no idea. Wow, it's real.
Oh, it's real. And that's the thing that for me is that I just want to bring awareness and bring heightened, like, there's one thing that, yes, now I'm on medication for anxiety that we think is a direct result of that. I can't do high intensity day after day. So definitely check that out if anyone's interested.
Cool.
Best ways to get in touch with me, gxunited.com is the website.
Okay.
My email is just summer@gxunited.com.
We'll put all this in the
we'll put all this in the notes. And then you can find on GX United on social media, and then you can look up me on social media as well. Instagram and LinkedIn are where I spend the most amount of time, so you can find me there.
Very good. This is great. I have learned so much today. It was really, really great hearing about all this, and I'm sorry you had to live through it. I never even knew, I never heard that expression. I mean, I've heard of overtraining, you know, that kind of thing. But again, I don't have that gene where I'm going to push extra hard and I'm going to eat and eat and eat. So I don't have to worry about it. I got plenty of other things though. I'm not perfect. Yeah, that's really, really interesting to hear everything that you had to say. And guys, if you want to learn more, I mean, really, if nothing else, sign up. You have an email newsletter?
I do.
You send out?
Go on to the website.
Go on to the website, GX United. Yeah.
If you download the workbook, it'll also
automatically put you on there. Yeah. Because she's got Summer and her company, they've got some amazing blogs written by some amazing subject matter experts, Jessica Maurer and others. So yeah, jump on there. It's a great resource for Fit Pros. So thank you so much, Summer. It was really great spending time with you this afternoon. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to chat. And
for sure.
See you soon.
All right. You take care. Bye, everyone. See you next month.